today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about
how to decide whether you need to be in the relationship or out of the relationship. Remember, we are seeking personal clarity, not control. We're not trying to control ourselves. We're managing ourselves. And we're certainly not trying to control the other person. Managing emotions allows us to act consistently. It allows us to create safety. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm Rich Heller and I'm your host, and we're talking about, believe it or not, emotional mastery, mastering your emotions, the key to relationship growth or clarity. And the punchline is, when we're in a topsy-turvy relationship and we're not sure if we should stay or we should go, the only way we're going to know the next right thing to do in regard to the relationship is by gaining some emotional clarity. And emotional clarity comes with mastery is probably the wrong word. Emotional mastery, it makes it sound like you're going to be a Jedi Knight of your emotions. It's probably more appropriate to say learning how to identify, experience, and manage your emotions so that you're having them, they are not having you. What makes relationship choices so confusing is the emotions come on so strong that we don't know if it's us or if it's them. And this episode is all about sorting that out, how to get to the place where you're managing those emotions and feeling confident about whatever decisions you're going to make. I want you to think about this series, if you've been listening to it. This whole series really has been about bringing our awareness on ourselves and on our relationship. And the purpose of bringing our awareness there is so that we start to experience and understand our emotions. We had laid the foundation for this episode in the other 14 previous episodes, talking about first distractions to our attention, talking about how to reduce distractions, things that we can do that will help us to focus more, ways to start to rebuild the relationship if we feel like the relationship is going backwards. All of these episodes have led us to this point. Have you wondered how managing your emotions can transform your relationship, or how to stay strong if the transformation doesn't come? This episode explores emotional mastery / management as both a tool for growth and a way to gain clarity about your partnership's future, right? And the truth is, you won't really know if the problem is not solvable unless you first try to address your own shortcomings, clean up your side of the street, manage and master your emotions. Managing emotions allows us to act consistently. It allows us to create safety. Safety allows us to create an atmosphere where our partner can choose to trust again, or they may choose not to. And when they choose not to, if we feel like we are being our best selves, if we feel like we're navigating situations where change doesn't happen in the relationship, then we can start to have clarity about what our next steps are in terms of that relationship. If we are doing the work and we've worked through some of the stops that we talked about in the last episode, and we see that we've done everything we can to bring the relationship into emotional positive. Remember, we used the metaphor of the relationship bank account in the last episode, moving from our emotional line of credit to emotional positive. If we've done everything we can to do that, and things still aren't getting better, the other person's still acting out, they're still behaving in strange ways, and we feel like we've done everything, really done everything we can, now we have a decision to make. And that's what we're going to explore in this episode, how to get to that point. Emotional mastery is not emotional suppression. What a lot of us equate emotional mastery with is, well, if I'm just not acting out, then I've mastered my emotions. In fact, emotional suppression, where we push down the feelings, eventually leads to eruption. And I'm not saying that we can't process the feelings and save them for processing in another moment. If this moment is not expressing in another moment, if this isn't the ideal moment, what I'm saying is when we suppress it and cover it over and hope it'll go away, we can never have true emotional mastery. In fact, the intensity of the emotions that you're feeling at times are the result of old, unresolved emotions that were pushed away, pushed away, pushed away, coming up to the surface. There's something about your relationship that is bringing up not just the hurt of the relationship, but also old emotions from previous hurts. It might be in the relationship, it might be in other relationships, it might be personal disappointments, it might be from your childhood. Only you know for sure. The emotional mastery or management means having the emotion until you're done with it, finding the lesson in the emotion, and then moving on. Emotional mastery involves awareness. It involves regulation, not suppression, and expression in a way that aligns with your values and goals, that is not threatening or scary, inappropriately scary for the other person. It might be scary for them to hear that you're feeling disappointment, hurt, sadness, or anger. It might be a little scary for them. They might have some fear of conflict, but if it feels threatening to them to the point where they're reactive, then it might be the way you're expressing it is not within acceptable boundaries. Might be, might not be. How does managing your emotions affect your partner's behavior? Consistency in emotional responses creates the foundation for trust and safety. So let's talk about what are the possible impacts of emotional mastery. Then we're going to talk about tools for mastering your emotions. Then we're going to talk about navigating the two outcomes for mastery. And we're going to talk about building resilience. And then we're going to come to the conclusion, just so you know the roadmap in front of us. So there are two possible outcomes when we master ourselves. And again, mastering ourselves is not repression or suppression. It's that we're experiencing our emotions and expressing them in a way that is safe for our partner. Outcome one is relationship improvement through safety and trust. Outcome two is that the relationship stagnates and declines. And why is that? Let's talk about those two things. What happens when your emotional mastery creates a consistent and safe environment? Over time, your partner is going to choose to trust you again. Over time, as they trust you and they make it safer for you and you choose to trust them, there's going to be more vulnerability. When there's trust established, there'll be vulnerability. There may be little setbacks where the trust feels violated in some way, but ultimately, when those little setbacks happen, you will share about what happened. You will learn from the experience, the hurt, the sadness, the fear, whatever it is, and you will grow together. And ultimately, intimacy can flourish in that environment. You may find that you clean up your side of the street, have emotional mastery, your partner feels safe and starts to express themselves. They may have some problems. Maybe they have a traumatic experience that they need some outside help with. And your job then is to support them with that if they want your support. Your job is not to say, you've got a traumatic experience and you need outside help. It's to allow them to get in touch with whatever's in the way for them and identify possibly it goes back to some intense experience they had either with you or before they met you, and that they need some help with it. In fact, they may need help with it, and then they may need you to go into counseling with them. Emotional mastery demonstrates reliability. Emotional mastery makes it easier for partners to feel secure. Emotional mastery allows an environment where both partners can engage in positive relational patterns, and that's when the relationship heals, deepens, and grows. So what if, despite your best efforts, the relationship doesn't improve? You're having your emotions. Maybe you've done some mental and emotional release work and let go of some old assumptions and old emotions. You're really clear about what you want in a relationship. You're doing everything you can to make it safe, and every effort just gets you a smack in the face. And I'm not talking about you're in emotional deficit and you're getting a smack in the face. I'm talking about for months, You have created a foundation and they're just not responding. They continue to be argumentative, or maybe they're depressed, or maybe one day they're really happy and one day they're really sad. Maybe maybe they have another diagnosis. There's something in them they just can't get past. What do you do then? Emotional mastery is knowing that you can't save them. You can't fix them. You do not have the answer to their problem. All you can do at that point is call it out and make a decision that maybe you're just not in a space to wait for them to come to the conclusion that they need to do something about their side of the street. When our partner is so unwilling to come to the table, even though we've done everything we can and we are at peace with ourselves, we're centered, we're feeling emotional serenity within ourselves, and they just can't vibe on that, can't buy on that, it might be that this relationship is declining or stagnating. It might be the relationship is just doomed. Getting to that place is what we're talking about when we talk about emotional mastery, the place where you get the clarity to know that you've done everything you can. And now maybe it's time to move on. And then having the clarity to plan, how will you move on in such a way that the well-being of your children will be protected, given that your partner has some major trauma or mental illness or something else going on that is destroying your relationship and is going to impact them. A temptation is going to be to cut the other person out of your children's life. What you need to get, though, is that your children are 50% the other person. And so learning how to deal with the other person is going to help them learn how to deal with that person within themselves. And so cutting them off is very rarely the right answer. Let's talk about tools for mastering your emotions. Do you understand your emotional triggers? I mean, emotional trigger, as we said in previous episodes, is when we go from 0 to 60 instead of 0 to 10. A situation, we feel hurt, and all of a sudden we go, ah! Instead of, I feel hurt. Or we feel angry, and we go, ah! Awareness that we have triggers is the first step to mastery. Awareness of the root of the triggers is the only way to heal them. We can learn to work around triggers, which is something I spent years helping clients do. Couples. I help couples learn to work around, dance around their triggers, or you can release the trigger itself. We can rewire we can help the unconscious mind to rewire itself so that the trigger is no longer present. Basically, release the old emotion, learn the lessons, and move on. You get to choose how you want to handle those triggers. But awareness is the first step. Something we suggested in the past is that you keep a journal to track your triggers, track your emotional responses, track the situations that evoke them, reflect on how these affect your behavior and relationship. A way to do this without doing mental emotional release is to use the 12 steps of a 12-step program, but you really want to get help from somebody who's done it. You know, a lot of times following the 12 steps of a 12-step program is like, I say this often, following instructions to assemble a piece of furniture. If you haven't actually done it, there are a lot of tricks that will help you make sure you don't have pieces left over or that it doesn't fall apart later on. So whether you're going to do a DIY 12-step approach or you're going to come to someone for help, like through mental emotional release, you're going to want to make sure that whoever it is has got experience and understands this and is really willing to help you, really willing to be there for you, really understands the process. Once you have your triggers released, or are at least learning how to work around them, identify them or work around them, you want to practice regular emotional regulation. What that means is when an emotion comes up, not feeling overwhelmed by it. What it means is creating spaces and times for you to have those emotions. Actually, recently, for several years, I've been processing a loss. I have my brother and my son, neither of whom have really want to talk to me because of bad behavior on my part with them at another time in my life. stuff that I've worked to clean up, stuff that I've changed and grown through, but they don't want to know about it. And there was a lot of grieving involved, and I needed to make space. Actually, let me backtrack a little. At first, I tried so hard to fix those relationships. It was like, hey, look, I'm different. I'm so much better. They didn't care. They may never care. They may have decided that their life is better without me. And I need to honor that. And so if I'm going to honor that, it becomes a matter of what do I need to heal in myself to honor that? So I allowed myself time to grieve. I allowed myself time to mourn. I allowed myself time to let it go and finally get to the point where I could accept that my greatest joy is for them to be happy in their lives. I will support them being happy any way that I can. And I don't need to get anything for it. I don't need to talk to them. Don't need to have contact with them as long as they are joyful, or actually, as long as they are satisfied with the choice that they've made. I'm going to be good with it. Does that mean I won't experience sadness? From time to time, sadness comes up, and that's okay. And I have it when I go to church. I have it in times of prayer. I have it in times of meditation. What doesn't happen is if my wife suddenly decides that she's angry with me and doesn't want to talk to me, I don't go from 0 to 60 with her going, what? Is this happening all over again? No, because I recognize it's not now. I've had the emotions. The emotions have been resolved. I've done the work. I've learned the lessons I need to learn. That's what emotional regulation is about. It's about having your emotions at appropriate times and expressing it appropriately. Things that you can do is when you're feeling emotions intensely is you can use deep breathing to steady yourself. You can use prayer and meditation to steady yourself, but don't use it to avoid the emotion, right? I've met a lot of people who get deep into meditation and they think the goal is to just be not emotional. That is not the goal. The goal is to have emotions so we can learn the lesson of the emotion and release them. Life is about lessons and growth. If you don't agree with that, I'd love to hear about it, actually. I'd love to talk to you about it. We want to make sure that our emotional expression is aligned with our values. So when we're angry, how do we express it so that our partner understands that we're angry, but we don't scare them to death? When we're sad, how do we allow ourselves to have the sadness so it's not totally incapacitating? When we're hurt, how do we allow ourselves to have the hurt so that it doesn't interrupt the 99 projects we have going on? When we're joyful and exuberant, how do we allow ourselves to be joyful and exuberant in the right time and place? I statements are huge. We talk a lot about I statements and rich in relationship. The website will have a link for I statements so that you can learn more about it. Reach out to me if you want to learn more about I statements. All right. So let's talk about navigating the two potential outcomes. How do you nurture growth in a relationship that responds well to your efforts? Emotional mastery is going to help sustain positive changes when we're having our own emotions and not dumping them on our partner. When we're expressing them in a way that they can receive them, we create safety and permission for them to do the same. They may be a little behind us on this. Maybe they're going to express their emotions inappropriately. We want to make sure that we have boundaries set up so that if our partner should express emotions in a way that feels unsafe to us, we have strategies for managing that. Simple strategies would be, hey, I don't know if you intended it, but my reaction to that, but I don't know if you intended it, but when you said that, no, I don't know if you intended it, but I felt afraid when you said that you're mad because I didn't lock the front door last night. It reminds me of when we used to fight about things, and it brings up a lot of fear in me. So using an I statement is a way to enforce that boundary. If they're very reactive and they can't honor that boundary, you may need to take time away from them. You may need to give them space to process their excessive emotions, their 0 to 60s. In the same way that you would want time and space to process your 0 to 60s. When you do that, when you operate in this way, the relationship is only going to blossom and grow. It is going to become easier and easier to talk about everything relevant to your partnership. It is going to become easier and easier to trust your partner in their strengths. Having conversations about what are your strengths and what are their strengths, and allowing them to lead with their strengths and them allowing you to lead with yours is kind of the next step once there's safety. And you can build on that and grow on that. On the other hand, you are good with your feelings. You've been doing the work. Maybe you've gotten some help. You've let go of some old emotions. You've let go of some assumptions, some old beliefs. You're really clear about what you want, and your partner just isn't changing. In fact, they distrust you more and more the more that you change. What if your efforts to grow emotionally aren't met with change in your partner? Emotional mastery provides clarity. It provides the clarity that we need to decide whether we're going to stay, whether we're going to hang in there and hope that they learn, grow, or whether we're going to move on. And emotional mastery gives us the clarity to decide how we're going to move on. Instead of throwing down our toys and moving on in a tiff, we can feel our way through it, take our time, put on our big boy, big girl pants, and make clear decisions about what is the best way to move on, a way that feels respectful to them, a way that feels respectful to ourselves, and a way that honors the well-being of our children. I want you to reflect on whether your partner's behavior stems from temporary struggles or from deeper issues such as unresolved trauma, depression, or maybe they're even a little narcissistic. You probably want to get some professional help, professional support for guidance. It might just be having a couple of calls with someone. Resilience is built through emotional mastery. Do setbacks or lack of progress leave you feeling discouraged? Emotional mastery includes resilience in the face of disappointment. The fact is that when we know where we're going and we're having our emotions and we're confident in ourselves, there is no failure. There's only lessons. There's no mistakes. A mistake is an opportunity to learn and grow. When you feel like you've made a terrible mistake or when you feel like you're a failure, get that that is your opportunity. And by the way, in the spirit of honoring the emotion, it's okay to feel like a failure. When I say there is no failure, that doesn't mean you don't feel like that. It's okay to feel like that. Then start to look at, why do I feel like a failure? What happened here? And then maybe let yourself get a little angry about it. You know what? I'm tired of feeling like a failure. What can I learn from this? And then go to your cerebral cortex. Don't come from anger. Like when we act from anger, I'm tired of feeling like a failure and I'm going to attack something. That's not going to work. But if you take that anger, that energy that anger generates, I'm going to win. And then add your cerebral cortex. I'm going to win, and I want to make sure I don't hurt anyone else. I'm going to win, and the well-being of my children or my partner is important. How can I win and do that? Then you can take that feeling of failure and leapfrog it into something else. Keep your long-term goals out in front of you and celebrate small wins. Maybe you've got a vision board that you look at. Maybe you've got a written statement that you read every night and every morning. Keep those goals in front of you. Remember, we are seeking clarity, personal clarity, not control. We're not trying to control ourselves. We're managing ourselves. We're certainly not trying to control the other person. If you've been trying to control the other person or trying to control your relationship's outcome, throw that out the window. If you've been trying to save your marriage, throw that out the window. If you're trying to save it, it's dead already. Emotional mastery is going to allow you to build a new marriage based on the same commitment that you made. Sometimes we just got to let go and start over. Emotional mastery focuses on controlling your responses, not your partner's actions. Letting go of the need to control creates space for genuine clarity about your relationship's direction. Remember that your goal is for you in your partnership. Either your partner is a fit for that partnership or they're not. But you still have the goal of having a certain kind of partnership. This is how we make the decision. This is the kind of partnership I want. I'm showing up as my best self, the kind of partner I would want in a partnership. They just won't step into that role, no matter how many different ways I invite them, no matter how many offers I make. Maybe it's time to move on. Or they finally took that olive branch and they're starting to step in. There's hope. It may take months. It might even take years, but there's hope. And sometimes for the well-being of our children, we take the first step of a 1,000-mile journey. Emotional mastery involves awareness. It involves self-regulation, not suppression and repression. It involves value-driven expression. It creates safety. Safety builds trust. Trust builds vulnerability, and vulnerability builds intimacy. But it also helps you to navigate situations where change isn't happening. Whether the relationship improves or remains stagnant, emotional mastery of ourselves provides clarity, and it gives us strength to make informed decisions about what's next. I want you to identify one area where you can practice emotional mastery this week, maybe this month, because remember, it takes 30 days to establish a new habit. Whether through increased awareness, personal regulation, or intentional expression, careful intentional expression, pick one. For free tools to help you master your emotions and strengthen your relationship, visit our website, richinrelationship.com. Next episode, we're going to be talking about aligning personal and shared values to create a thriving partnership. This is like what happens when your partner decides they're holding out the olive branch, they're stepping into that partnership. That's what we're going to talk about in the next episode. Super exciting. Until then, have a wonderful day and an amazing tomorrow.